FAFSA. It's the forms that you fill out to figure out how much money college will give you. And then student loans. This is how much you have to pay on your own. We're talking about both today on Two Wants to Know. In this very first segment, we're going to be talking about FAFSA first. Kathy Mueller, a FAFSA expert, is with us. And we want you to get your questions to us about FAFSA or student loans. Here's how you do that. You're going to text in those questions, 336-379-5775. This is your chance to get your question about FAFSA or student loans answered from an expert. All right, so Kathy Mueller is with Mapping Out Your Future. Let's talk about this. The deadline for FAFSA, it was June 30th. So what happens if you're a student and you miss that deadline?
Well, actually, the deadline is not yet
It got
happened.
moved.
Yeah, well, exactly. The deadline for the 24-25 academic year is actually next June 30th.
Oh, sure.
So it's not too late to fill out the FAFSA. So I recommend anyone who's considering going to college in the 24-25 academic year to go ahead and fill out the FAFSA.
Okay, gotcha. So with all the FAFSA issues this year, what do you want students and parents to know?
Well, the biggest thing to know is that a lot of the issues have been ironed out. And a lot of people are reporting that it's very quick for them to complete the FAFSA. So it's important to go ahead and fill it out because that's one way you'll know what your options are. You won't know what financial aid that you'll receive until you complete that FAFSA. And you need to complete it for all kinds of financial aid, not just federal financial aid, but many institutions require it, many states require it. So it's important to fill that out and not leave money on the table.
All right, so what about if you are a student and you're like, I'm not really sure that I'm going to go to college. Why should I fill out this form?
Well, as I mentioned, it's one way you'll know what your options are. Until you fill out the FAFSA, you're not going to know if you're eligible for any type of need-based financial aid like grants and scholarships. Also, it's probably worth noting that a lot of future careers are going to require additional education beyond high school. So it's important to, I think, right now be considering what kind of post-secondary education you want to receive. But I really think the most important thing is to be able to consider all your options right now, and that FAFSA will give you the information you need to consider all of your options for your career after high school.
All right, so here's a question. If a family member is identified as a contributor on the FAFSA form, will it make that family member responsible for paying for the education costs?
No, it does not. But it is important to note that any student who is considered a dependent, and that is most students who are under the age of 24, they're not married, they don't have the dependents, and they're not a veteran. And there are some other parameters for considering who is a dependent student, but most high school students or recently graduated high school students are considered dependent, and they will have to have a parent or parent help them complete the FAFSA. So that's important to note. There are some exceptions to that, but it is important to note that they do have to have a parent contribute to the FAFSA, but there are exceptions to that, and also that does not obligate the parent to contribute to the student's education.
Okay. Now, what happens if you have one parent who is willing to put their information on the FAFSA, but you have another parent who is not?
So there are a set of parameters for students on who they should invite to contribute to their FAFSA. If the student's parents are married and the parents filed their taxes married, filing jointly, they're only going to need to invite one parent to contribute to the FAFSA. If their parents filed separately and they are married, then both parents are going to have to contribute to the FAFSA. There's also special circumstances if the parents are divorced. In those cases, the student will need to provide information about the parent who has the most income.
All right, so we're getting a question here that's asking, can you apply for the FAFSA and use that form if you're already getting disability?
Yes, in fact, I recommend that anyone complete the FAFSA because someone who's receiving that type of assistance, that doesn't necessarily prevent them receiving any federal financial aid.
All right, and then this next question is, if you don't use all of a Pell Grant or a scholarship, do you have to file it on your taxes then as income?
So it depends on the situation. So certain types of scholarships and grants do have to be reported on your income tax return, but it won't necessarily impact your eligibility for federal financial aid in the future. I would recommend that you talk to your tax accountant about how that impacts on your taxes.
Okay. All right. So this first segment, all about the FAFSA. The next segment, we're going to start off with student loans, but we want you to continue to send in your questions via text on FAFSA or on student loans. The number is 336-379-5775, and we'll be right back.